It's back. It's back. Competitive football at Anfield is back. It's back. Daily moaning online about transfers. It's back. Conspiracy theories about fan media. It's back. People telling other people what a real fan is. It's back. Moans about the Anfield atmosphere. It's back. The Reds winning and winning well in L4 to, in theory at least, leave us all happy. Right? That's the idea, yeah? Clean sheets are back. A pint after the match is back. I'm back. Welcome to Bank Holiday Late Challenge, an early edition of all the usual stuff. And today we will mainly be talking about the slot machine in full effect. There we were, now here we are. All this confusion. Nothing's the same to me. Yeah, we might talk about Oasis as well. Reforming, we presume. That will probably be on Patreon. I'm going to take a guess. We're going to talk about transfers. We're going to talk about FSG. We're going to talk about fixtures. We're going to talk about the Champions League. We might even talk about holidays and mountains and the TLC Fantasy League and all things bright and beautiful. Who knows? But stay with us. More as we have it. Okay, Liverpool 2, Brentford 0. The first competitive Anfield game for Arne Slot, and it was pretty much no fuss. It was good, wasn't it?
Sound, yeah.
Yeah, you're happy with it?
It was pretty much. It was when we gave a game in. I was like halfway through it, probably 6 minutes, and she was like, "What's it like?" And it's pretty much what we predicted it would be, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like he's come in, he's. Do you know what the mad thing about it? I want to talk about Klopp a bit, just so we can stop talking about him. Because I think I've got the vibe even Van Dijk was like this when he got asked about it. I'm sick of Klopp being mentioned, which is ironic that that's the first thing I've said. But do you know one of the things that came up for me as I was watching the matches? Do you know when we get hit on the break now, and there's like 7 Liverpool players sprinting their bollocks off to get back? I'm like, why weren't we doing that under Jurgen? Do you know what I mean?
We were in different positions, or weren't we, under Klopp? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, but it's different styles of football and different approaches and different mentalities and stuff. And I think the answer to that is, it was a bit like you want to go 2-on-2 with Virgil van Dijk and Kanate sound, like the Suarez and Sturridge thing. I think the philosophy under Klopp was more, well, we'll win it back and we've still got all our lads up to the end. Whereas this style is, no, get back and defend first, and then we'll worry about attacking again later. But there is that element of, we fucking had loads of time, especially last year in the Klopp, where you're like, fucking hell, why are people just running through the middle of our pitch and having shots at our goal?
I know.
And it's funny seeing this approach and it being just a different mentality to, no, we just don't concede.
Someone's saying your mic is a bit quiet. Is his mic a bit quiet? Kofi's? Just pull it a bit closer to your mouth, lad. Come on, you've been doing this a while now.
I thought that was well close, you know?
Christ, you can't get the stuff, can you? Well, let's do the stats first off then. So Liverpool dominate in pretty much every respect. So 63% possession. In terms of expected goals, 2.65 for Liverpool, 0.36 for Brentford. 4 big chances for the Reds, 1 for them. 19 shots for Liverpool, 8 for them. Our goalie made 2 saves, theirs made 6. We got 9 corners, they got 4, and on it goes. It just reinforces everything that you saw, which are that Liverpool dominated the game, controlled the game, were pretty comfortable, and it was all good, basically. There's a stat from Off the Joe that Liverpool completed 92% of their passes in the game. The best passing accuracy in a Premier League game on record since 2003-04. So there is an obvious change. You know, Slot has talked about killing them with passes, and we're seeing it already. It's early days, obviously. We don't know how things are going to go. We've only played 2 sides who, you would expect Liverpool to beat. But, we've scored goals. We've conceded no goals. We haven't done the thing of conceding first and, annoying everyone in that way. So I'm really positive about it. We got a bit of a bollocking from some people, didn't we, about not being overly enamoured with the new fella in the summer, his initial interviews and things like that. But as I'm now obviously getting to know him, if you like, and seeing what his style's about, there's stuff to like in there, isn't there? Basically, do you know what I mean? He's like, I'm doing it again, but you know, Van Dijk talked about not doing this as well, but it's almost impossible not to compare with Klopp. That's just going to happen. It's human nature. I found myself looking towards the dugout during the game just to see what he was doing, and I'm like, he doesn't do much, does he? He doesn't really celebrate the goal much. Ooh, there's only a little polite clap at the end, and is that it? But he's like, I hate to use the phrase in a way because it used to rile me back in the day, but remember when people used to say Benitez was cold? He seems a bit cold, doesn't he? Basically, Slot, but potentially in a good way. Like, he just doesn't seem to be having anything. Do you know what I mean? Like the whole media game, he's not having it. He's being like, you know, he's having a pop at, you know, he's had the pop at James Pearce, pop at Pajak, a pop at Carragher. He's not answering. He doesn't want anything that he doesn't want to answer. And even when he's like sort of thrown a little bit of toffee, you know, like, oh, like he got asked something pre-game about, you know, where he could have gone big about the atmosphere and about Anfield and, you know, and done all the romantic stuff, and he just wasn't having it. Just like, yeah, the atmosphere was all right at Feyenoord, like. Yeah. And do you know what I mean? But I kind of quite like it. I'm like, my take on it is that he's definitely not so far gonna have you like sort of edge of the seat and like, wow. But it's business like. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, let's just win loads of games and see where we are, eh? And it's like, all right.
I'm all right
with that, yeah, definitely. And like, I've seen people griping about the atmosphere today again, which always seems to happen, doesn't it? It's like the perennial debate. And it's like, Brentford on a Sunday afternoon, we were in control all game, and it was all right. I just don't think it's going to be booming for that game in that circumstance and in the manner that the game unfolded.
And it never was it?
No, and if Blades want to say something, other, you know, who supported the clubs, just let them. It doesn't matter. Who are they? The strangers, the people you've never met. There's someone with a fucking name and a little avatar on a fucking social media platform. Asked. Like, I took a picture of Anfield and, like, you know, put that on my Twitter, and some mank replied saying something like, I heard the shutter click when you took that because the atmosphere was so shit or whatever. And I was like, took it with my phone, mate.
There's no shutter on the iPhone, mate.
What shutter click you you know what I mean? Wasn't there with like a big hood and a fucking...
It's a mad comment that. It's a mad comment to make on social media through a phone, isn't it? Through a smartphone.
But are you all right? Are you all right with what you're seeing? I mean,
I love it. I think it's great, and I know this. Someone made the comment on one of the lads made the comment on the producer show we do with top level Patreon subscribers last week. Little plug there if anyone wants to get involved. Little behind the scenes chat we have, and the Rafa thing came up then. And I think having it's on the agenda maybe to talk about later, but having seen Rafa again, doing the Overlap podcast last week, I think it's a bit, I can see why people are saying that, but I think it's a bit harsh. I think Slot's way warmer and way more, this is like harsh on Rafa, but way more normal than Rafa, I think.
Yeah,
Rafa's just mental.
Yeah.
Like that podcast, it was hilarious to watch because it made me go back to thinking about Joe when I was young and defending him to my uncles. And my uncles all going, he's fucking weird. And you look back and think, well, with hindsight,
eccentric.
Like, he is definitely eccentric.
Yeah.
Watching Carragher's frustration at trying to get him to answer a fucking question and not go off on 10 different tangents about 10 different unrelated topics, and like other people going with him, and Carragher like, no, I want to talk about Istanbul in half time and the team select. That was hilarious. But on the point of Klopp, I think Slot, fucking Freudian slip. I think he's well warmer, and I think he's got a good sense of humour. Like the stuff we saw with James Pearce and Carragher, like I think it's just a nice sense of humour. And I just think the bit that I can see the comparisons with Rafa is he is just like you said. He's just like dead professional. It's just like, I'm here. I think it ties into the head coach thing. I'm here to do a job, and my job is to win games for Liverpool. and I'm not asked about anything else. Like, you're not going to draw me into it. The thing, we talked about this last year, Klopp was hilarious, and we all loved him, and he's a great personality and all that, but Klopp was hilarious. I used to call him out on this, for complaining about the newspapers doing what newspapers do, whilst at the same time giving them what they wanted.
Yeah.
Like, he
couldn't help himself.
He couldn't help himself, could he? And that was the thing. So it is funny it's funny watching Slot straight bat things. Like, I've compared him with Paisley, even though I didn't see that much of Paisley. But so I saw someone else compare him with Dalglish and Dalglish's approach.
Kind of was like that with the media.
He could be funny and he'd have a little joke and stuff. But with the media, he was very straight bat most of the time. Yeah. Just like you're not gonna get anything out of me.
Did you see Slot about when he was asked about Curtis Jones's injury?
Yeah.
And he's just like, well, I don't. It's confidential.
We're not allowed to tell you.
In Holland, we don't tell you. Yeah. Is that what we do here? And then he's looking at Barrett, and then he's like, yeah, I don't have to tell you.
Yeah, I'm just.
And isn't that something we've always said? Like, this idea in football that the manager has to tell you anything.
Yeah, and he doesn't.
No, it's not court. It's not, it's not law. It's a game of footy.
Yeah.
And if he thinks there's an advantage in not telling you something, he's going to do that then, isn't he? Yeah. And I'm kind of all right with it. I do feel, look, it could be like famous last words and come back and bite you on the arse, but I do think that he's not going to create many headlines, basically. His press conference is not going to be the source of, top story on Sky, back page the next day or anything like that. It doesn't look like. It'll just be like, we're cracking on with business. We've got a good... Like he says, I think he says all the right things about the squad and things like that. Even the Trent thing, the Trent thing for those... I presume most people have seen it. He has a bit of a paddy that he's substituted. But I like the way he just goes and fucking sits next to him and it's like, straight away nips it in the bud, doesn't he? And then talks about it after and just like, yeah, the lads who weren't picked weren't happy either.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I like that comment.
Yeah.
Because that's almost like a side point to Trent, saying respect your teammates.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly.
Because they haven't got a fucking...
So
you expect them to have a good attitude when you're picked first.
Well, really well handled, basically, wasn't it?
Like, and all of that, and you've put it here, like, we've already commented on the defensive focus and stuff, but it is just nice to have 2 clean sheets on the bounce. To win 2 games 2-0 and just not
especially
not go behind
that last season and look, I'm going to temper myself here by saying I'm making that sound like it was terrible. We were like 9 points off the champions last season. We finished 3rd. We won a cup. It was no disaster, and I don't know where the idea that it is coming from. But it was annoying, wasn't it? Like you said before about like the sort of the lack of control, the conceding the first goal so many times and all that kind of stuff. To see, back-to-back league clean sheets for the first time since October was nice.
Well,
was good.
We were crying out for this, weren't we?
Yeah.
Last year.
And look, there was hardly anything there either, was there? Do you know what I mean? I remembered one more when I first come out the match and I went and supped my first pint and we all started doing the what did you think and all that. I said to one of my mates, I can only remember that free header, and that's it. Like, what were their chances? And then, I got my phone out and had a look and it's saying, 0.36 expected goal. And I thought, well, that feels about right. There was one more though, wasn't there? There was the Alisson save as well.
Yeah.
But it's 2 headers in 90 plus minutes. That's it.
Yeah.
And okay, we can do the only Brentford thing and all that, but only everyone was getting through us last season. Only everyone was creating chance after chance, it felt like.
Yeah.
So to just be like shutting up shop, controlling games, taking the sting out of things, being sensible. I even like that, the Trent thing, I'd twist it on its head and I'm like, I like that he's subbing him. I like that he's subbing Salah. I like that he's like, I don't give a fuck about any of that. Like, I'm in charge, I'm the boss, and I think I need to save your legs. And also, Conor Bradley's good, so I'm going to use him.
But I think this also ties into, and fair play to the club, almost, I think, for this, because I think by giving him head coach name, title, and removing him from everything else, you give him complete freedom. Because even, did you see him pre-match? I think it was in the Carragher interview on Sky. He asked him about the three lads who contracts are running out. And he basically said, my job is just to get the best out of them as players. And if they want to sign, they'll sign. That's up to the club to sort out. And I think that ties in, because if you're heavily involved in everything like Klopp was and managers like that, when you're picking your team, you have to think about that. You have to think, well, if I piss Trent off, he's less likely to sign a contract. Whereas if you're just like, well, I just coach whatever lads you put in front of me and I'm all right with that and I'm part of like buying players and that. But if the way I'm just going to coach him the way I would coach him, and I'm going to pick him the way I would pick him and sub him the way I would sub him. And if that leads to him leaving, sound.
Yeah, it's not on me.
That's not on me.
Yeah.
I'll play someone else.
I think that, you know, that sort of big reset button being pressed, and you know, him having no previous with any of them is obviously, you know, that's coming to the fore as well. You can see it. So not just in respect of what you just said, which is spot on, but also I think, like, you know, so far he doesn't seem to really fancy Núñez, or he's not starting him.
Yeah.
And Salah, he didn't buy him. There's no politics. There's no like, well, I rallied internally for this player to be bought. He hasn't got that with any of them. It's a complete clean slate. So, like, you know, it's fairly common knowledge now, isn't it, that like Klopp really pushed for Núñez, Klopp wanted Núñez, and that perhaps there were some dissenting voices in other people involved in striking deals, etc. at the club. Slot's just like, come in. Well, if you're going to get in the side, lad, it's going to be on merit, and right now you're not in.
Yeah.
End.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay,
sound
boss. Yeah. And so, like, again, that sort of like excites me in a way, because it's like, you know, it's took me a while to get to here. Don't get me wrong, because, like, you know, as we said in so many shows, I was gutted about the big man going and all the rest of it. But now it's like, you know, like, it felt good to go to Anfield yesterday. Good to see him there in the dugout. Good to see Liverpool play in a different way. Good to win, obviously. And yeah, I don't really get some of the, like, you know, I genuinely feel that there's some people around who'll find anything to moan about, you know what I mean? Like, how have you gone and watched Liverpool win 2 out of 2, and you've just finding some hard shit to moan about? Like, just enjoy the fact we've won there. Do you know what I mean? And, like, you know, at least for an hour or two, and then maybe, you know, get stuck into the other stuff. But yeah, good. Made up the breakaway. I thought as well, you know, the breakaway goal was obviously great from their corner. Really good. And, you know, the pace of that, the how clinical that was, fantastic. But I thought at other points in the game as well, there was just some unbelievable football, and it just didn't quite come off. There wasn't, you know, it didn't end up in the back of the net, so you're not going to really see it on like highlights or anything like that, are you? But it was like, okay, now we're moving the ball well here, aren't we? Do you know what I mean? Like you know, and it's like, I don't know, it just feels like there's this calmness, isn't there, about the way they're playing, but then it feels like they can suddenly flick a switch and they're away. But there's definitely loads of different things. You can see it, can't you, already? It's like, you know, it doesn't feel to me like that the fullbacks are like bombing forward quite as much as they were. They're tucked in a little bit more. They're perhaps a little bit safer. I mean, Robbo still nearly scores, like, so they're obviously getting forward. And Trent was popping up in different positions.
Well, I know, because same usual dynamic. You were at the match and I was at home. Did you hear what he said about Trent after the game? And this is why it's a bit, Trent having a cob on coming off. I was a bit like, and look, you can have that thing where you're just like, fine, Joe, players get a cob on when they come off. But you're like, come on, mate. Like,
know, you know,
you've been at the World Cup, you know the score, you've got a full season ahead of you.
Yeah, it was a bit shit.
When you listen to, Joe, when you're watching it on telly and Carragher was talking about it, like, Trent's role was mad during that game. Like, he was popping up on the left wing, he was playing right wing, centre midfield. At one point, we had the ball, like, Joe, building from the back. Trent was like in the number 10, number 8 position, like just like in the forward line. And Slot said, we got a big
fly, isn't it?
Nice big fly,
big meth, big shit eating weirdo. Get out! Come on,
we've done that on previous shows, haven't we? Yeah. So he basically said, we're giving Trent, like, basically you want to get Trent on the ball. He's that good. So we're giving him freedom to find. He's basically almost saying in more words than this, he's got a free role from right back, and it's up to everyone else to fill in for him when he's doing that. And you're like, fucking hell, mate. Sounds like this new manager's really trying to like build it around you.
Yeah.
So having a cob on when you're getting taken off is a little bit, I think, naughty.
I thought after he'd had a word with him, I've seen the little clips back, subsequently, and it looked to me anyway. I obviously didn't see the coverage. I've just seen little clips here and there, so it's always a little bit of a danger. But it looked to me like, he had a word with him, and then it looked like he looked like a bit of a told off kid. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was a bit like
sulking a bit.
Yeah, a bit like maybe I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, been a bit of a knobby.
Yeah. But I'm sure it's not. And I mean, how many times over the years doing this, have we talked about player strops and all that? Like,
it's constant, isn't it?
I've just been on holiday and Cara was reading Firmino's book, and just telling me little bits when he was reading it, and he was saying about the when Firmino pulled that face because Mane was kicking off on Salah and all that. It just shit happens, doesn't it? And
they're just people, aren't they? At the end of the day,
and I just don't think it's a thing. It's just we'll all crack on.
I was just on that actually on they're comparing it to real, because I was just thinking that the problem these lads have all got is they've got 30 cameras on them as they're doing their job. So if they've got, we can have a cob on in work, but there aren't 30 cameras on us showing every time we've got a little pull in a face. Yeah. And it's the same about that's what I was thinking about Slot and Klopp. Imagine in your new job. Imagine you get a new job, and for the first 6 months, everyone's looking at you, but they're like, well, do you know the fella who did this job before you? He did it like this. After a while, you'd be like, and this is another reason I think he's great, because he's just dealing with it really lightly. But there's a part of me even going, can you just shut the fuck up? Imagine if that was you in your job, and months into it, people are going, well, do you know the fella before you? He did it like this. You'd be like, I don't give a fuck.
I know.
What's it got to do with me?
I know.
He's gone now, which is sort of what Virgil said. Do you know, Klopp was great, but he's not here now.
Just to say, we got a super like. Is that right? Have I got it right? Is it called that?
I know in my head it's a super chat. No, it's a super like, isn't it?
We got a super like off Porford Simons, tenner. Have a beer on me, Shankly. Have a beer on me. Shankly was different to Paisley. That went well. Slot's different to Klopp. Yeah, fair. Hope you're well, mate. Yeah, thank you for that. What else have we got here? People just talking about. Someone says it's super chat. Whatever, super something. What else did we going to talk about? So 2-0, great football, breakaway goal was superb, control, we've mentioned all that. Robertson unlucky as well, Gakpo with the bar deflected late on as well, so it could have been more. And yet that free header for Norgard and the Alisson save from Collins. Besides that, not too much else to shout about.
I think it's fair to say both games we should have scored more goals, shouldn't we? It wouldn't have been. The first game could easily have been 3-4-5. That one yesterday could have been 3-4. And I know, as you said, there's always going to be people moaning about Sutton. But for your first 2 games of the season, when everybody says, the first few games you're still getting up to speed. It's a new manager. He said himself, the big players who've come back, they've only had 3 weeks with him, all still getting used to his style of play. To have these 2 performances, and it does my head in this when people go, yeah, but it's only Ipswich and Brentford. You're like, yeah, but when we found out we had Ipswich away first game of the season at 12:30, everyone was saying, "What did you say it last week?" Or maybe, but that was on the producer show. There's a reason the cameras are there. There's a reason TV have picked it. It's a massive potential banana skin. Yeah. They're fucking bouncing coming into their first game. Everyone knows you don't want to play the promoted sides first, early
and when the doors are shut in that producer's room or however they do it when they make the picks, they're going to say it's a great story of Liverpool's new manager post Klopp comes in and loses. Because the best thing ever for any media, is let's draw the Liverpool badge with a big crack down the middle. Let's say they're in crisis. Let's do this. Let's do that. And so they're almost willing it to happen, and it hasn't happened. Yeah, 6 points out of 6.
So it's easy in hindsight to go, yeah, easy games seem like they weren't.
Yeah,
there's no easy games
because of all the eyes that are looking on. Yeah, absolutely.
He's done really well.
David Gray has thrown a tenner in on a super chat as well. Trent knows he's got real competition, he says. So let's just hope that makes him kick on and fight for his place. All the best, bros. Thank you, mate.
Thank you, mate.
Jamie Keegan as well. $2 in a super chat. Amazing tracking back. 65 minutes. Trent Trent ran back. Cheers, La. That's what I wanted to ask you about as well. I mean, you know, it could have been more, but another conversation we were having in the pub was sort of like about, you know, there were definite like periods in the game where they almost took time out. Do you know what I mean? They just kept the ball. They didn't make it, you know, they weren't like bombing forward. They weren't trying to push it unnecessarily. It was just sort of, we'll take the sting out, we'll keep the ball. And that's another contributing factor, by the way, to the ground being a little bit quiet. If you're watching that, it's just not going to be buzzing, is it? Mm-hmm. But anyway, so, you know, that resting with the ball, I think that was a Rodgers one, wasn't it? Do you think, because we're hearing, aren't we, I think there's a little bit of a narrative growing that perhaps part of Slot's strategy, if you like, is literally doing it, like that's purposeful. Like I'm not going to run them into the ground. I'm going to manage the minutes. I'm going to manage the squad. I'm going to manage them literally when they're on the pitch in the 90 minutes. And maybe then, because we did see under the last manager, Liverpool reach March or April or whatever, and injuries have mounted up and players look fatigued, and you know what I mean? Like, so do you think that's in his thinking, and do you think we might see the benefit of that?
100%. And there was talk of that before he came in, wasn't there? Like, his injury record, considering he plays a pressing game, his injury record's brilliant. And you can see the difference. And we've seen this for years, like in the closing stages of the season when City are getting better and better, we're looking like our legs are going. We've played in Champions League final, and at the end we like, it looked a bit leggy there. And again,
remember in the cup against Chelsea where it went to extra time and they were just all like, nah.
Just all goose, yeah.
All like, just like passing the ball around on the wing going like, yeah. Not on left, lads, just waiting for the pens.
Yeah, we mentioned this while you were away. Like, there's literally times in the game, and again, yeah, Joe, I think we will see this reflect in the atmosphere, and maybe we'll be a little bit less critical of City when you realise that, like, it's hard to have a boss atmosphere when you're watching footy where they will literally, like, there are times during the game now where our player will have the ball and literally stop. Almost stop and put his foot on the ball and be like, have a little breather here, can't we?
Yeah, roll it under the studs, have a little bit of a look. Nah, it's not on, you have it back.
And it's funny because
roll it on the studs, have a look. Nah, it's still not on, you have it back.
But that's it. He talked about that pre-game as well, about one of the things he's been getting into them is, and it's funny because he makes a point in this of like saying it's not a criticism of Jurgen, because Jurgen would have looked at this as well, and you're like, I think you're being generous to Jurgen there, mate. His whole footy was about being mental. But he was like, I'm trying to teach them they don't have to take these mad risks with the ball all the time. Like, if you can put a player in front of the goal with a pass, it's worth the risk. But he's all about risk reward calculations when they've got the ball, and if the risk is too high compared to the potential reward, that's how you're conceding these counter-attacks. So don't do it. And I think you're already seeing that. You'll see a player look, and there's a pass they might have played in the past, and they've gone, nah.
Yeah,
keep it.
We've got 90 minutes. I mean, I think you could see as well, couldn't you, about, you know, that clip did a lot of heavy lifting, didn't it, in pre-season of, like, you know, them bailing into the, you know, the bags that the coaches were holding and all that, and obviously, like, Mo did it and nearly took the fella out, didn't he?
Yeah.
And in fact did that on the pitch yesterday.
Yeah.
But again, like another thing where it's a bit of a difference is like the slower build up, isn't it? Like, you know, like they do mix it up sometimes, and Slot talked about that. But equally though, like they're looking for Mo, but they're not looking for Mo fast. They're looking for Mo, like, obviously, if you like, do you know what I mean? So like, we're gonna move it round, and then it's gonna go to Mo, and Mo's gonna have a fella on him. Like, he's not necessarily sprinting past him. He needs to hold it up. And so that therefore makes sense that you've done loads of work where people are bailing into you with bags, because that's what big Grox centre-halves are going to do to you. Because he was like the outball a lot, but like almost like the outball in a different way. In that, you know, he's, like I say, he's being expected to hold it up, not necessarily be sprinting beyond. So that was interesting as well. It's like that sort of constantly backing themselves. Like, we're all good on the ball. We can all hold the ball. We can all beat a man. And like, I think because we've slowly but surely been coached on that type of football, as in watching it, like, we're all right with it now. But can you remember when, like, Rodgers first came and we were trying to do that with, like, Skirtle and stuff? And I think, was it Tevez nicked it from Skirtle when he was trying to do it once and scored, and it was like, you know, like big massive kick off. Like, because we get that now. Like, that is modern footy, isn't it? Like, you know, City do it, whatever. So when we were doing it yesterday, there didn't feel like there was that mad nerves in the stadium of, I'm just getting lad, it's a long lad, what are you doing, lad? And all that. It was just like, this is what we're doing, and this is sound. And
do you know what's mad when you say that? Got a bit of sympathy for Rodgers came up, because he's done that thing, hasn't he, Joe? Like when Souness tells stories about when he took over the management, and he was just basically well ahead of his time trying to implement something, wasn't he? Because all these years later, when you're the first fella who comes into the dressing room and goes, no fish and chips after the game, lads. And everyone's like, what? Huh? We always have fish and chips after the game. It's lucky. You can't tell Ian Rush you can't have fish and chips after. And 40 years later, like, why would anyone want fish and chips after the game? Yeah. That's crazy.
Fish and chips. It's what Ian Rush eats.
Yeah. And it's like, there's all stories like that, aren't there? Like, and he went shit because we stopped getting his fish and chips. You're like, I don't think that's what it was, lads. But it's the same with like Rodgers, and obviously nowhere near as good a coach, and is a good coach, like, but there is a bit of sympathy there when we have had a long time to get used to this stuff now. But in fairness, I do think this came up against Ipswich. Like, Slot's got it. I think Slot's got a more common sense approach to it. It's not, we always do this no matter what. It's no. If like Joe against Ipswich, it was like, if you need to go long, go long.
Yeah, he said that.
Joe, if you're under loads of pressure, you don't need to take. It's the risk reward thing again. Yeah. Whether that's up front or at the back, it's like, no, play. Joe, calculate it, think about it.
It's calmer, isn't it? I feel like, you know, like, for all that, you know, the previous like style of football was good and entertaining and all the rest of it. It felt panicky at times. Like, you know, like, we've got to be creating now. Yeah. We should be ahead by now. Yeah. Whereas this feels a little bit more like, just back yourselves, lads. Be calmer. Calm down. It's okay. Like, a graphic came up on the telly, which you will have seen, I'm guessing. And I wondered what the context of the conversation was, because I couldn't hear it because it was in the pub. But it was saying, like, how much better Liverpool have been creatively in the second half of the two Slot games so far. And I was thinking, but what's your point? We haven't conceded. So I'm all right with that. I wondered what the conversation was. I don't know what it was.
Well, they asked him about it when he came on the pitch for the interview, when he had the proper Carragher.
What would he saying? Like, you shit first half?
Yeah, they basically said to him, is that the plan? Like, is the plan to be shit first half and boss second half? And he went, no. Ideally, you'd be boss both halves. And he went, but like, the answer is, it's funny watching any coverage of anything, isn't it? It's like, well, the answer is what you'd expect it to be. And it's going to entertain me, his press conferences, how long into the season people still ask the same questions with him straight batting them. Like, will they just keep going and him going, well, you know what I'm going to say? Because it was a bit like that, like, well, no, like, of course, I want it to be, ideally, you want it to be bossing both halves. You went, but the reality is, when you're playing against, like, smaller teams especially, they're going to put loads of energy into the first half.
Yeah.
So there's an element of, you just play that out. Like, let them burn themselves out, keep the ball.
Didn't he say something about as well, which was good, I thought, where he said something like, you know, along the lines of, anyway, I'm paraphrasing, but something like, you know, you can like plan for what they're going to do and what you expect them to do, but then it never is that, because you're not them, essentially. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, you know, you might do all the planning in the world and say, we'll have a space here, and with what the video lads have said this and whatever. And they know you've got video lads, and they know you're going to plan for it, so they'll do something else.
Yeah, well, it was funny because two things came up. Like, Ipswich, he said they pressed. A few times they pressed. And he was going into quite detail about it. Like, Joe, we expect them to press with their number 9 and the number 10, and they were pressing on the left-hand side with the number 7, blah, blah, blah. And then I saw in the Carragher interview, pre-game, they talked about, Thomas Frank was on Sky last year, and he told them that when they play the big teams away from home, they play 3 at the back. And when the game started, so Carragher said that to Slot, and Slot was like, yeah, thanks, we've seen that as well. But then when the game started, Carragher's obviously like, well, we know what they're going to do. And he was like, oh no, it's not 3 at the back, it's 4 at the back. Because guess what? Thomas Frank's told you that on Sky, and he's evolving his own team. Yeah. And he said himself, Brentford needs to evolve. So they're evolving the way they play football. So guess what? They've changed.
So, we're still getting a shout about volume, so I don't know if that's just one person in the comments or whether there's an issue. So I'm just flagging it to the gallery. Nice one to Edward Joseph 1808, who's also thrown in a super chat. Thank you, mate.
Thank you, mate.
What else did we want to talk about? We are about 40 minutes in. We're going to talk about transfers, actually. I'm just having a look if there's anything about the game that we haven't touched on that I wanted to touch on. But I think we've mainly got into it all. I guess the next thing that we haven't said, actually, before we do go on to transfers, volume all good. Thank you. Thanks for letting us know. I wanted to talk about, obviously, we're 2 games in, and obviously you can't sort of analyse too much after 2 games, but we all do, because that's football. But it's Man United next. Man United away. And look, we've all had a big laugh at how they lost to Brighton at the weekend and the hilarious circumstances of that. The offside goal was literally laugh out loud stuff, or it was for me in my living room. And then equally, when the lad pops up with the winner late on as well. Great. Boss. And then Everton gets swatted as well. And all in all, it's one of those, if Carlsberg did weekends, etc. But, Man United at Old Trafford, as we found out last season, like, what you expect to happen given the relative standings of the 2 teams doesn't always unfold in these games and all that kind of stuff. So this is different, isn't it, now? It's like, well, what will that be like? Because if we go there and win, and if we go there and we're doing this type of stuff to them at their own place, then it'll be like, oh, hello, won't it? Do you know what I mean? Because I don't care that they've got an oddball manager, and I don't care that it's not the greatest Man United squad ever. I care that new manager, trying to introduce new ways, decent start, 2 wins. If you go there and do something, then I'm getting excited.
Yeah, and funny enough, like I was thinking about this before, that like, if you look back to last season when we went to Old Trafford a couple of times, we all expected to just batter them. And the reason we didn't batter them and we lost in the cup and stuff, and they basically impacted our whole season, was because of what we've been talking about. We were a mental team. And we could batter teams, but if we didn't take our chances, they could just score then. Whereas I'm looking at our first 2 games and going, if I was a Man United fan, because United fans were shitting themselves last year at us coming, but if I was a United fan watching this new Liverpool team, I'd be a bit more concerned. Because you can just imagine being like, well, we'll just be dead tight at the back. Mm-hmm. So you won't get those chances and you won't get those goals. And then we'll go and create, like, you mentioned it before and we didn't really go into it, but that move in the second half where it was just one touch footy.
Brilliant, man.
And you're just like, fuck it now. And it went on the crowd after, didn't see everyone looking at each other going,
yeah,
fucking boss that, wasn't it? Would have been like goal of the season if we'd have finished it off. And I don't know, I just think I'll be going into that game thinking it could be a 0-0 easily, but I'd be going in confident that we're going to beat them.
I hope so. We need it. We need it. Someone said there in the comments, like, we owe them, and we do. Do you know what I mean?
We do.
And it's like, I don't know. I'm interested to see, like, like we just talked about Slot and, like, his sort of calm demeanour and all that kind of stuff. But, like, he'll know how big this is. And if you're from Holland, you're from Germany, you're from Spain, whatever, you know, you're gonna know about Man United v Liverpool, aren't you? It's the same way you know about, like, I don't know, big game in Milan or whatever. You know what I mean? A big game in Germany if you're in England. He will know about this. He will know what it means. And, it's not ideal, I guess, in some ways that it's coming up this early. Because he probably doesn't... That's the other thing, isn't it? He probably doesn't want expectations to suddenly rise. He's probably all right with how things are, where most people are going, Liverpool, nah, they're not going to really do it. And I heard it all on the radio this morning, and I was having a little chuckle to myself while I was having a cup of tea. It was all like, yeah, they're not in the title race. It's City and Arsenal, and then Liverpool, nah. But then even the co-presenter on the show I was listening to, was when he asked them to say why, the other fella couldn't really say why, because he was like, yeah. And then he was like doing the devil's advocate. The other fella saying, like, well, they got 82 points last season. It's still that squad only a year on. They've got lads in there who've won the Premier League and the Champions League, etc. They've got younger lads now who've got a bit of experience under it. Like, why again? And, like, okay, there's a thing of, and a lot of Liverpool fans are saying the same thing, and I get why. A lot of people are saying, oh, yeah, but what about injuries? And, we've got, like, a We've got a little, like Konate played well yesterday, as an example, didn't he? He looked like the old good Konate. But his injury record hasn't been the best. Jota was good again yesterday. We know how good he is, but he's got a mad injury record. Some of it seemingly, his own fault, because he goes in for mad challenges at that. We were talking about that in the boozer. We were saying, wonder if, because Slot seems to be spot on with his planning, and he's very meticulous, and we heard all that about, he'd watched old training sessions, never mind just old matches. Wonder if they've sat down with Jota and said, listen, you're boss, you can score loads of goals, the fans love you, you'll be brilliant for this side. We need you to stop going in for dickhead challenges, lad.
Stop being
Just
mental.
look after yourself a little bit. If there's some challenge there that you think, I could go over and clatter that lad and maybe come out the other side with the ball, leave it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll sweep it up at the back. Don't worry about it. You just crack on with scoring and setting things up. But yeah, United next, so that's going to be very, very interesting. And it's interesting as well, if we can get the other side of that, ideally with a win. We've then got Forest at home, Bournemouth at home, and Wolves away. All of which you would say are winnable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And
then, so all of a sudden now I'm making myself excited here. All of a sudden then, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you've clocked up 6 wins, it's like, hang on. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. And there is, as ever, annoying little breaks in there. So just as you get excited after the Man United game, if we've won, well, that's on the 1st of September. And then there's no Premier League game until the 14th.
Yeah, it's mad, that, isn't it?
Yeah, does me head in.
Break
really does me head in. And then, of course, as well, we do have to factor in the fact that we'll have the Champions League phase matches to be talking about soon. So match day 1, 17th to the 19th of September. And then we've got 8 of those games in that new weird format. But that's probably for another show. A few other little bits and bobs as well from the match. So Mo Salah's now being directly involved in 128 goals in 128 league appearances. That's 93 goals and 35 assists, which is not bad, is it? I'm going to roll out the list once more because I never get tired of doing so. People who remember the shows from last season will know that I love doing this. So all-time record, all-time top goal scorers for Liverpool ever in the history of the football club. Number 1, Ian Rush, 346. Number 2, Roger Hunt, 285. Number 3, Gordon Hodgson, 241. Number 4, Billy Liddell, 228. Number 5 in the history of Liverpool ever, boss, brilliant, Mo Salah, 213. He's got Billy Liddell in his sights there. He needs 15 goals this season, or 16 if you're saying, to surpass him, to become the 4th top goal scorer in the history of Liverpool Football Club.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal, isn't it?
With not quite half, but probably 60% of Billy Liddell's minutes. Look at the last column in that table is the one, we've mentioned this before, but games per goal. He's only behind Gordon Hodgson.
Yeah.
And I think I've said this before, but Gordon Hodgson played in the time when you could score a goal by when the goalie caught it.
Webbing the keeper.
Yeah. You could pick him up and lash him into the goal. Imagine that. No. Yeah! Like, fucking hell, lad.
Keep it in the net.
Mo did like a half shoulder barge, half push yesterday in the middle of our half.
And
got pulled.
I know, yeah.
And it's like Gordon Hodgson's I wonder how many of Gordon Hodgson's 241 goals were just lashing the goalie in. But yeah, we've said it all before, haven't we? Just unbelievable. We had a good chat while you were away about him, what do you do? What would you, if you're doing his contract now? And this is the bit, footy fans never do properly, do they? Think it through properly. If it was your job now, what do you do?
I know.
Because he'll want a 4 or 5 year contract on 350 grand a week. And you're like, yeah. And Rob's point was, this isn't the same Mo Salah as it was before. And I'm like, he looks all right to me.
Yeah, still scoring, still assisting, still a threat, still
super
a problem.
Fit.
Yeah, strong. One of my mates was saying, was it Stu, right? I can't remember now. Saying yesterday in the pub, he's like, hey, now he's had his haircut, he's like, you realise that even more that he's not that big. And I was like, no, he's not that big. He never has been that big. And he's like, I know, yeah, but, you know, because he's got a streamlined head now. And I was like, when that thought crossed your mind, who was he by? Canate. Oh, well. Yeah. Here you go then. Yeah. But yeah, already more goals than Steven Gerrard, than Robbie Fowler, than Kenny Dalglish, than Michael Owen. Yeah, decent. He's now got 118 Anfield goals as well, which is more than Robbie Fowler at Anfield, and only 4 other players in LFC's history have more. Last one, which will bring us on to the transfers now, because I thought this was a good way to sort of segue into it, is another Opta Joe one. It says 262. Today was Virgil van Dijk's, as in yesterday, was Virgil van Dijk's 100th Premier League appearance for Liverpool at Anfield. He's won 82 and lost just 2 of those games, drawn 16. Only Patrice Evra with Man United 263 picked up more points in his first 100 games, home games with the side in the competition. So yeah, 262 points won, and only 2 losses in 82 league games at Anfield. Which brings me on to the point really about there's lots of people currently, as ever, getting the knickers in a twist about transfers and lack of them. And look, yeah, I can see it for myself. Liverpool are the only club in Europe's top 5 leagues not to spend this summer. But I don't get how frantic some people are about this fact, and why they feel the need to argue day after day with other people and almost try to gaslight them that it's been shit supporting Liverpool the last few years. I'm sorry, lads, but it hasn't. And that's why I wanted to read out that Virgil stat. Like, that's unbelievable. We've been unbelievable at Anfield, and that's where I see Liverpool play most. So I've had a pretty good time, I've got to be telling you here. And if that means I'm a top red, or I'm not ambitious enough for your liking, well, so be it. But this gaslighting that, like, it's been absolutely shite under FSG, and that we need to get rid and get them out now. I mean, they tried to sell, from what I could see, and there wasn't really any takers, because there's not that many people that have got a spare £1 billion, I don't think. So, but in terms of the spending, I do think, and I don't know where you are on it, someone asked you, I do think Liverpool should be spending, and I think Liverpool have tried to spend, you know, evidently. So they've tried to get Gordon, didn't happen, didn't work. And yes, I totally get that. If you look at all the leagues, and if you look at the league Liverpool are in, and Liverpool are yet to bring in a single player that you can go, that's not great, is it? And, you know, we've actually got less players than last season, but because, you know, Thiago and Matip have gone. We've then sold a little clutch of youngsters as well. So we've definitely got money. So we've got money that we got off that. We've got money that we got off the clause for Solanke as well. So there's money there. And John Henry was in the stands yesterday. So
he's got money.
He's got money. And not only has he not paid me my hush money lately, but he's not coughing for these transfers. But yeah, Liverpool yet to bring a player in. Southampton have made the most signings so far, 13 in the Premier League. Chelsea have been the biggest spenders, and it all keeps on going. And then they're now trying to have a fire sale and get rid of a load of players because they've got a big, mad, gigantic squad. United have spent 140 million on signings. Brighton 144. Villa 149. And on we go. Tottenham spent obviously 65 million on Solanke, and they've spent 126 million all told. We obviously went in for Zubamendi, and it didn't happen. He wanted to carry on looking at the mountains in San Sebastian.
It's nice, San Sebastian, by the way. Have you been?
No, but it looks amazing.
It is, boss.
Looks really good. Have you been? Yeah.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, I fancy that. I want to go there. We've obviously there's this Marmadashvili deal which no one cares about.
Worst. I reckon that might be making things worse, you know.
I
think it's a worse transfer rumour.
Shit,
or even not, it's not even a rumour, is it? It's the worst transfer saga in the history of football. No one gives a shit.
No.
And also, I think we're all a bit like, what? Why?
Yeah,
Why are we trying to buy a goalie when we've got the best goalie in the world?
And I think
our second choice goalie's boss
I think people started to join dots as well, didn't they? As they do, because like we talked about before, football clubs don't need to tell you anything, and largely don't. And so we're left with in the void, going, what's going on? I think people started to join dots, saying, well, if we're signing Mamardashvili, does that therefore mean Alisson's getting off then? But he's come out now and done he's
the only one who's come out and said he is staying.
Yeah,
they asked Virgil on the pitch after the match about his contract, and he swerved it.
Yeah, I don't know, I saw that.
Trent swerved it, Mo swerved it.
Yeah.
Alisson's come out and gone, no, I'm staying.
Yeah.
Like, well, why are we buying this fucker then?
Yeah, so, don't buy him, not arse. But yeah, and as you've just rightly pointed out, Trent, Mo, Virgil, all in the final years of their deals, and no news on any of those deals definitely doesn't help with the vibe of being the only club in Europe that hasn't spent any dough and all that kind of stuff. And look, there's a thing here as well where, as I've already said, this is not based on anything. We're just guessing, like every other Liverpool fan, what the crack is. But, could there be an argument to say that perhaps some of the conservatism that's currently going on in terms of spending, because that's what it looks like, is this because they're going, well, if all them lads get off, we're going to need a lot of dough. We're going to need to do a lot of spending all at once in one summer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because we genuinely don't know. None of us know what that situation looks like behind the scenes. So I presume that they've spoken to them, or or agents have spoken to people at the club. You'd like to think so, wouldn't you? Like, you can't just pretend it's not happening.
I saw someone say the other day, who was it? Saying, it shouldn't have been allowed. It might have been Jamie Redknapp. Shouldn't have been allowed to get to this point. And you're like, Jamie, genuinely, do you think that Liverpool Football Club, with the way it's been run, you can criticise FSG all you want, but the football operations behind the scenes has been boss. So do you genuinely think they haven't got a fucking calendar alert set up to say Trent's contract's only got 3 years left on it? We need to have a chat about that. They'll have been having these talks for years, and 100% those three players, as soon as they've heard Klopp's going, I've gone, I'm not signing anything.
Yeah, see what happens.
I'll wait.
Yeah.
Because why shouldn't I? You put yourself in the box seat, even if you want to stay.
Yeah.
You negotiate yourself an unbelievable deal to stay at the same club. Yeah. Because you say to the club, yeah, but if I leave now, you don't get anything. And to replace me, It's going to cost you 50 million.
The closer you take it to the precipice, their hand becomes stronger, doesn't it?
You can, and this is what me and Rob talked about this, like, this is the mad thing, and I think footy fans don't get their head around this. Renewing the contract of a lad you've already got that could go on a free, it's still worth paying them more money, because you don't have to pay a transfer fee to keep them. So if Trent goes, I want 20 million quid in my back pocket, after tax, by the way, in order to stay, it's still a good deal, because to replace him would cost more than 20 million quid. And that's, I think it's a really good point you've made, and I hadn't really thought about it, that if they all stay or they all leave, makes a massive difference to your squad next year, especially because you're not going to get a penny for any of them. So they're the three top earners, aren't they, I think? So you save a load of dough on wages, but that's three massive lads to replace in your squad in one go. So I'm guessing they will have one eye on that, because if you flip it the other way round, and the Zubimendi things proved the point I made last year, and I remember, getting a bit of stick about, well, it's not that easy, when I said, well, if we haven't signed Caicedo, got 110 million quid there, go and buy a boss centre-back. It's like, it's not that easy. You're like, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not sure signing any player for that much is easy, but my point is always, just because we can't name a player, there's always this thing of like, well, who would you buy for 100 million? And I'm like, well, I'll tell you something, right? Let's do this. I think we mentioned this the week, but let's do this. We're all watching the Euros final. Like, everyone's watching the final. When Rodri had to go off at half time, even the fucking pundits in the studio were creaming themselves that, oh my God, Rodri's had to go off. Like, it's going to inevitably mean England will win. They brought on Zubimendi for Rodri. No one was going. I didn't hear a single person go, oh, but by the way, Zubimendi's unbelievable. So it doesn't matter that Rodri's gone off, because Zubimendi's basically like Rodri light. He's boss. we'd never heard of him. Let's be honest, no one had heard of him until we were linked with him. Then you start looking at him, go, fucking hell, he's boss, isn't he? Then you look at his age profile and you go, so you're telling me he wasn't boss a year ago? He wouldn't have been worth looking at instead of Caicedo a year ago. He was already on their list, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was already in their stratosphere of signings. Last year they decided not to go for him. There's another lad on the list now that they're making the decision not to go for. And look, that's at the end of the day, that's what they're paid to do. And the Ian Graham thing keeps coming up, which I really like, and I'm using it in business all the time now. Did you see the thing where he said, like, the number one reason transfers don't work is if you buy a lad and you've already got someone in your squad who's better than him. And I think that's your biggest problem when you're Liverpool. Like, it's all well and good. Like, you look at Man United, who they've bought. I don't know how good Lenny Yoro is. I know he was highly rated and we were linked with him and stuff. But he's only young and he's 52 million. De Ligt, I remember when he was highly rated, but before he went to Juventus. 38 million quid for him. Am I arsed they've bought him? No. Mazraoui, or whatever his name is, 12.9 million, fullback. Am I arsed they've signed him? No. Xerxes from Bologna, 36 million. Am I arsed they've signed him? No. Could you buy any of those lads, put them in our squad, and there wouldn't be someone in our squad you've pissed off? No. They're in a different position to us. Like, it's hard to buy. That's the fact. Like, I want Liverpool to buy players, and it's hard to buy players who, if you go, right, well, we're buying him to play in that position, is he better than everyone we've got? Because if he's not, you're going to cause trouble in the squad. That's a hard decision to make.
And everyone says we should get a 6, and I agree. I think we should get a 6, but we've got a lad who can play there. He's now coaching another lad to play there, and I thought Gravenberch did well. Yeah. What will Gravenberch look like against the top side in that position? That's potentially a different story, but we'll see. But still, would Liverpool be better with an actual specialist? Well, yeah, and they just tried to go and get one, and it didn't work out. So now what? And as you say, I'm sure there's a list, and I'm some lad on the internet who's going through fucking FB ref or whatever it's called, and well, you could get him, and you could get him, and you could get him. Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, lad. So does he want to come? Does his family want to come? What wages does he want? What fee does his club want? There's so many aspects to every transfer that all these blades that kick off and start saying you're not a real fan and all this kind of stuff. You're not considering any of that, are you? But if I say this, and I am saying it right now on the show, the very same people will say, oh, you're doing your bidding for FSG and all that. I couldn't give a shit about FSG. I couldn't give a shit about John Henry. I support Liverpool, and I want Liverpool to do well. I want Liverpool to win things. I don't want Liverpool to have money in the bank. Kenny Dalglish said that once, didn't he? Like, fans don't want Liverpool to have money in the bank. They want the money to be spent on players on the pitch. And I agree with what Kenny said about that. And I think right now, looking at it, we're 1, 2, maybe 3 short of what the squad should be, and we're gonna come on to a bit of a mad one. So a hat tip to Stu Wright for this yesterday in the pub. So my thing about this, I was writing this show this morning, and I was thinking all about it, and I was thinking, one of the worst things that I think can happen to you as a fan of a team is when someone wins the league and you look at it at the end of the season and just think, we were so close there, and if we'd just done that little bit of business in this window now, could we have got there? And the one that always pissed me off was when Leicester won the league that time. It's like, how have they won the, and every disrespect to them, how have they won the league before we have? We should be winning the league in that season when everyone's shit.
With 25 points or whatever it was they won it with.
70 odd, wasn't it? 77 points, I think it was, when they were actually crowned. And you're like, we've got more than that.
That's wild, that, isn't it?
Yeah, like
they won it on 77 points.
I think they ended up with 81.
We've had 90. What did we get to? We got finished second on 97.
Yeah. How was this a thing? So what I'm saying is, I hope Liverpool don't get to the end of the season with regrets. Could we have signed 1 or 2 more that would have made the difference here? And there's a bit of a mad thing going on, and you know, City could have points docked this season. You know, it's finally coming round, isn't it? This case, this independent panel and all the rest of it. You've got, and we'll just accept it, and the players understand it, and we know it's coming and all that kind of stuff, and we'll just crack on. And there does come a point where you think, you're just going to have to cop for it. Like, yeah, you could wrap this up in red tape forever and keep bringing lawyers in and blah, 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 blah. Or you could just cop for it because the whole world knows what you've done. So say that happens. Say they get docked. You know, bear in mind what you just said. Like, you know, leagues have been won by by a cigarette paper in years gone by. You know, goal difference and 1 point and things like that. So imagine Liverpool are up there at the end of the season. They get docked points. Who's winning the league? Arsenal. Okay, they look all right, yeah. They did all right last season. They got 89 points.
Yeah, but I was just going to say, people, and I like Arsenal, and they've done really well, and my brother-in-law supports them, but they haven't, I said this last year, they haven't hit 90 points yet. Like, you can be as good as you want. You're not winning the league against Man City in a normal season without breaking 90 points. So if Arsenal won it on 89 points, we'd be like, fucking hell.
That's what I mean. So let's push the boat out now to make sure that this club, this side, is as competitive as it can be now. Yeah. Because, you know, like the line from Richard Hughes was, we will always be opportunistic if we can.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that because I think that's the problem, is that if you want to win the league, mate, and this is where I think there is valid criticism of FSG, we've always been conservative. And I think you did see this with Klopp as well. And maybe one day if he does an autobiography, Joe, when he can speak properly, honestly, he'll say stuff he sort of hinted at, which is, and he did say, he went more than hinted this at the end of his time, I think. Like, of course there's players I'd have had. Of course I'd have spent more if it was my dough. Or maybe not if it was my dough. We all like spending other people's money, don't we? That's the thing at the end of the day. Everyone's sound saying, well, just spend it. It's like, all right, well, if it was actually your money and you were in charge of it, would you buy this fella? But I think that's the problem. Liverpool needs to be more. You've put it in this. Should they be more than that? Of course they should. I've said for years, Liverpool should be looking at players they want. Not, I talk about this in real life about, like, you know, you live in a house that was just happened to be available when you wanted to get a house. But actually, if you think about, if you were creating your own life, you just go and find the house that you would like to live in, knock on the door and say, can I buy your house? And if they said to you, it's not for sale, you say, well, how much would it cost for you to sell it to me? And that's I think, the approach Liverpool should have. It should be, who's the player we want? And if someone says, well, he's not available, go, we'll make him available.
That's the thing, isn't it? So you can make them available by putting, you know, bidding more. Other clubs do that. And this, like, obsession with value to the detriment of the competitive nature of the team. That's where I would say there's a big question mark about what they're doing right now. Some sad news just coming in while we're recording this, which is that Sven-Göran Eriksson's passed away. So sad news. Rest in peace, top bloke. And really glad that he got to manage the side at Anfield.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, sad news there about Sven. I think we'll have to wrap up on this show because I think we are around about time. But just to add on what I was saying about Manchester City and about whether they could end up with dock points and therefore leave an opportunity open for someone else to win the league this season. This is where there was the hat tip to Shu Wright. So he said to me in the pub last night, have you seen the odds for Manchester City to get relegated this season? And I was like, can't say, can't say, you know, I went and checked that, and he was like, have a look. So I got odds checker up on my phone around about 9 p.m. last night. And there we've got Arsenal 2001, 2002-1 I should say, to go down. Liverpool 2000-1 to go down. Tottenham 500-1. United 250. Newcastle 250. Villa 100. Chelsea 40. West Ham 33. Brighton 25. Manchester City 12-1 to be relegated this season. Now, we've talked before about odds on here, haven't we? And one of the reasons odds go mad like that sometimes is not because the bookies think that will happen. it's because someone's lashing loads of money on it. So if someone's lashing, or multiple people are lashing money on it, why? What do they know? Where have they heard it? What's happening? So, interesting. We'll just leave it there because we don't know any more about it, obviously. But as I said before, you just wouldn't want to get to the end of the season when there's been an opportunity and think, could we have done more? We've got until Friday to sign players. The transfer deadline is on Friday. We will be back next week knowing whether Liverpool have bought any players or not, knowing whether they've sold any more as well, knowing what everyone else in the league has done. And then, of course, there's another transfer window in January. In the Patreon show this week, we can probably talk about transfers a little more if we wanted to, so we may well do that. There's loads of other stuff that we wanted to talk about as well, which included the idea of Oasis reforming, which seems to be happening. We wanted to mention our fantasy league as well, so that will probably be over in Patreon as well. We might mention how I got on climbing Ben Nevis, and I might even tell you a little bit about my Meldrew moans from my holiday. And if we've got time in the Patreon, we might also mention that Houston, we have a problem. Well, I don't know if you've seen that, but quite hilarious clip of Everton fans getting stuck into their own players at a station, and Neil Maupay biting back and making a very good point in the process. But all of that over on the Patreon. You can sign up for the Patreon for free, for a free trial. You can check out whether you like the extra show. You can check out all our old extra shows as well. You get extra access to them as well. And then hopefully you like it. You sign up, and it's only £4 a month as a minimum to watch our extra shows. And that obviously helps the whole thing tick along, as does, what's the other thing? Buy me a coffee. If you look up the Late Challenge, you can drop in a little bit of coin if you want to help us pay for the studio, etc., and keep the whole shebang going. But yeah, in the meantime, I'm going to have a cup of tea. We're going to write the words and stuff for the Patreon show. And then if you're joining us over there, we'll see you there. And see you next week on the free show. Okay, bye.